Hello, my name is Armin. In this tutorial, we'll talk about video processing and post effects. So this is our end scene. And as you see, there are a number of post effects applied. There are some composites. Let's cover it all, but let's start from a blank composition. So that's next thing I'm going to do. I'm going to go for new composition. And here I have a new canvas for me to create some fun and interesting things. So there are two ways to output video in Notch. And let's check both of them. First is image plane. And the second one is image 2D. So those two options allows us to output a video feed to viewport. Now, what is the main difference between one and the other? Image plane works in a 3D space. So if you have a 3D scene and you want to accompany it with some video files, this is literally the one you would go for. Now, if you are working just in 2D space, image 2D is the right choice. In this case, we will focus on image 2D. So I'm deleting image plane. And let's take a closer look at this node. So image 2D fills the whole available viewport space with a white canvas. And in order to do that, we need to connect it to the scene root. All nodes in Notch needs to connect either to the scene root or appropriate root. And all you have to do is just grab one of the 4 outputs from the root and connect it to the left side of a node. And here we're outputting a white quad. It's worth mentioning that most of the nodes in Notch has 3 points of interest. That would be parenting, output, and inputs. Input is a variable. Depending on the node, you might have 1, 2, 4, or 5 different inputs available for you. In this case, we have 4, and the first one is video node. So let's grab a video and let's use it with this image 2D. I'm going to go to my resources and I'm going to grab test feed 1. So that too comes in as a node. It's a loader. We'll talk more about its properties later on. But first of all, I'm going to grab the output of it and I'm going to try to find a right place to connect it. And as you see, as soon as I grab the output and click on it, plausible hookup points in other nodes lights up. In this case, we want the first one, video node. Perfect. Now we're outputting video feed through the image 2D. So the next step for us is to try out some post effects and understand how they work. Now, if you look at the panel available for you here at the bottom right, you will see that there's a number of categories, and all those categories correspond with different nodes available for you. In this case, we're looking for post effects, and there's abundance of choices for us here. And if you wonder how one or the other post effect looks, you can always press on the question mark here and you will be brought directly to the manual page, which then showcases exactly how that post effect looks. In fact, if I press on a post effect directory here, I can see them all shown in little thumbnail. This is extremely handy when you're getting started with Notch. Okay, so let's grab a couple of post effects. I will bring in glow and I will connect it to the root, and I will bring in edge detect. And I'm connecting that to the root. Notice stacking order changes the way the effects apply or the way they look. And Notch recognizes stacking order from top to bottom or from left to right. And as you see, I'm connecting it to the root, but that's not the only place where I can connect post effects. With that said, I'm going to delete these two and I'm going to start working on the actual design that we've seen in the beginning of this video. Cool, I'm back in my workspace. I'll delete these 2 post effects and I will focus on this video loader. You have just seen me applying post effects directly on the root, which then affects the whole scene, but you can choose to apply post effects directly on a video feed too. I'm going to hold shift and double click just to preview how this loader looks. And I'm going to add my first post effect. In this case, it's going to be color correction. Here we go. There are 2 options for me available. There's a shader and there's a post effect. I definitely want a post effect, so it's quite important to double check the icon and double check the color code. Some of the nodes have similar naming conventions, but they belong in a different group set. So we're looking for post effect color correction. Fantastic, and I will connect it directly to the loader. So in a color correction node, I have a number of options for me to tweak. In this case, all I want to do is make sure that there's no saturation or the image is in black and white. Next post effect I will add is going to be dot matrix. I just want some fun little details all around, especially in the bright parts of the video. So let's get that. dot matrix. Notice that again, there are a couple of nodes with a similar naming convention. We're definitely after post effect. So I'm connecting that to the video loader too. And here we have some properties that we can alter. In this case, I'm gonna increase the resolution, and I can do that by either typing in or pressing Alt and dragging a little bit further this slider. Control left mouse key will allow you to do a precision change, and Alt just has a bigger step. I think I want something like 160 here. Now, not only all post effects have a different tweakable parameters, but they have blend modes as well. In this case, for dot matrix, I would like to go for something different. Let's just cycle through and see what looks best. I think I'm going to stay with difference for now. Great. So we have the very beginning of our effect, but I do want to make it a bit more complex. In fact, I want to have this as one chain of video processing, and I want to have a separate one that would have a little bit more detail and maybe color correction of its own, maybe some tinting. And I can achieve that by adding nulls and then compositing them. So let's get that done. So I'm adding a video null, and I will connect it to this original video loader. As I do that, I'm actually making a direct copy or instance of the original video. Now, since we have these post effects applied on the source, they are inherited in the null as well. In this case, I want to keep the loader or the source clean. So I'm going to hold Control Shift and make sure to disconnect these two post effects. And I will just connect it to this null. So notice the source is not affected, is just a null that has these effects. Now we're outputting still the clean image to the image 2D, so I'll disconnect that. And we're gonna work now on the separate path here with various different post effects. And then we're gonna bring this and the newly made video null with post effects with the composite, and we will connect it to the image 2D for output. So with that said, I'm adding a new video null, connecting it to the loader. Shift double clicking to preview it. And here we're going to apply some different posts. I think I'm going to start with threshold. Great. So I'm connecting it to the video null. I can see it applied on this very little but very handy preview. But if I want to work specifically with this point of the chain and see it in the viewport, I have some options. So in the video null, I can either preview RGBA, RGB, alpha, or I can pip it in. In this case, I'm thinking that maybe pipping it in will be very handy. So we will still see our white quad being ready to output the image, but at the same time, we will be able to work on that specific iteration, that specific chain that we are setting up now. So in the threshold, I think I'm going to change a couple of parameters. I'm quite happy with the above mode. Threshold itself is probably fine. Maybe fall off range could change. So I'm going to set that to something like 0.5. There we go. And I want this to work as a mask. So as you see, it became black and white. That's great. That's what was intended. Next thing we're going to go for is recolor. So this post effect has an input. And you will notice that there is a transparent hint available for me. So anytime you bring in a node, and the node has a variable that is most likely to be used with it, it will come in as a hint. So all I have to do is click on the hint, and it will be available for me permanently in the node graph. Now, if by chance you've lost that hint, you can always bring it back by double clicking on the input pin here. There we go. Color ramp. So recolor node is looking to a color ramp to get the information of what colors would you like to use to recolor this specific image. And you can choose how many you want to use as well. So I'm going to increase that to 4 control points. So I'll have 4 variables. The first color, I want this black. And I think the second one, I want it deep, deep orange. So then the third one could be a little bit lighter orange. And then the fourth could be black again. Yeah, I think that works. I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm going to add the last post effect in this chain. And that's going to be Kuwahara filter. That is a very nice looking, very expressive filter. I'm going to increase the numbers here, maybe something like 22. And it starts to look like watercolor. In fact, we can preview not only in pip, we can just go full screen and see how it looks. Yep, this is quite nice. Is it easy to read? No. Is it pretty looking? Absolutely. So let's make sure that this design then merges with the black and white image that we have here, and it becomes a little bit more readable and easier on the eye. So how do I bring those two together? I can use a composite sources node. So composite sources has two inputs, the one here on the left and the one here in the bottom. Now, both of them are taken in video feeds. It's just whichever the one is applied to the left is the driver. So let's say if this video is 4K and this is HD, and I connect the 4K video to the left and then the HD to the bottom one then inherits or scales up to the 4K size. So this is the driver, the left side, and the bottom one is the follower. And again, we can either pip or preview full screen and see what's going on with this composite sources. Now, mind you, if you are not sure if you are in the preview mode or if you're actually viewing the scene, you can always tell that by this little button here. If it's lit up red, you are in a preview mode. If you click it off, you are then previewing the actual scene. So I'm going to come back to the composite sources and press on the RGB for preview. So now I can choose via blend amount. What do I want to output? Is it the option 1 or option 2? Actually, I want them both. So composite sources has not only the blend amount, but the blend mode as well. And in this case, I want to change this blend mode to something else. And since I just want to see them both, I think I'm going to try something like additive. There we go. Add. Fantastic. And lo and behold, we have both the designs merging all at once. So what we want to do now is stop the preview and connect the composite sources directly to the first input of our image 2D. And here we have the first chain of our processing set up. Now it's a little bit messy, so I'm just gonna try to make it a tiniest bit more nice looking. Practical tip, if your nodes are all over the place and you want them to look neatly, there are 3 options for you. You can arrange them horizontally, vertically, or in the grid. I want them vertical, and I can actually choose how far between they should be. So I think this is quite nice, but I do want a little bit more detail. I do want a little bit of original color from the source. So how can I achieve that? I think I'm gonna grab another image 2D and I will connect it to the root. So image 2D connecting to the root with the shortcut Control R, and all of a sudden, all our viewport is filled with the white canvas. Again, stacking order is very important here. So as you may have noticed, I have color correction, then dot matrix, here threshold, recolor, and then Kuvahara filter. So not only it applies to post effects, it applies across the board to all things notch, image 2D included. So now I want to grab the clean video feed and just pipe it to the image 2D. Now I could just grab the output and connect it directly here, or I could add another video null in between, just so that if I want to make some alterations, I have a hookup place for exactly that. So I don't have to alter the actual source. So yet another video null. I'm connecting the loader to the null, and I will connect this null then to the image 2D. And there we are outputting a clean image. So just like composite sources has blend modes, image 2D itself does have blend modes as well. So let's just see if there's something that we can benefit of. Again, I think additive works really well for us. We might change the amount of alpha, so how much is blended, but for now I'm gonna leave it full on alpha 1, so 100% in this case. All right, we're almost there. Moving on, there's one more thing I want to do. I want to apply this lovely texture that I have here on the overall design, and I want this to turbulate a little bit, have a little bit of dynamic motion. So how would I go about that? Well, again, I'm gonna bring in an image 2D. I'll connect it to the root. And I want to use this texture as an alpha image. So what does that mean? So I'm gonna grab the video null that we used previously and I'm gonna apply it here too. And if I connect this texture now to the alpha image, that then becomes a matte pass. So basically, wherever we see black here in this texture, the black is see-through and it uncovers the design beneath, and wherever we see white, it retains the image 2D with the newly made clean feed. So let's make this a little bit more prominent. First of all, I'm gonna make this into a actual black and white image. So I'm gonna grab a color correction, and I'll make sure to set the saturation to 0. And I think I want to tweak the brightness and contrast a little bit, but I'm gonna use these properties instead of using brightness and contrast. I'm gonna go for in white, and I'm gonna go for out black. So let's just tweak this a little bit. There we go. I already see things popping through much better. And maybe a little nudge here. I'm not putting any specific numbers. I'm just trying out whatever feels whatever feels best looking. I'm quite happy somewhere here. Now, I do see details exactly where the text is. I appreciate it's probably a bit hard to read, but I want the exact opposite effect. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna grab a post effect for inversion. So I'm gonna invert the colors. There we go. That is already much better. Yeah, tweaking the values here a little bit more. And in fact, I think I want to tweak the actual input for the previous image 2D a little bit as well. So I'm gonna add another color correction here. Color correction connects to the video null here. And here I'm gonna reduce the brightness and increase the contrast. So you see now this texture definitely pops through a little bit better. There we go. Again, no precise numbers, just approximation. Right. The last thing I want to do here is make sure that this text is turbulating. And for that, I'm gonna use a turbulence warp. So I'm connecting it to the texture. I see it's working, but I might want to tweak its properties. I think I'm gonna, maybe a little bit less or more on the, yeah, that's kind of nice on turbulence, but it's definitely too fast. So I'm gonna reduce the animation rate quite a lot. There we go. And gain, maybe a little bit more gain here. Yeah, all right. I think this works. I think this definitely works. Is there anything else we want to change? I think we had some dynamics going on here in the first change. So if now I come back to my reference design, yes, here we have a digital chroma glitch applied on composite sources. So I'm gonna go back to my designs and I'm gonna grab a digital chroma glitch post effect. Connect it to the source. And let's tweak some parameters in this very node. First of all, I do not want to see any red or green or blue channels. I want no split. So that already looks better. And I do want it to hold the glitch frame because that just makes things more exciting. What else? Glitch rate could be a little bit less, maybe somewhere around 12. Block size, that could be smaller. Maybe somewhere here. Yeah, that works. And glitch duration, maybe a little bit less there. All right, there we go. I think the last touch in general here would be to apply a color LUT. And color LUTs are an industry standard way of grading video. So if you want to make it look a little bit more cinematic or have a specific tone applied overall, that's what you do. You apply a color LUT. Now I have a number available for me, so I'm just gonna grab them all and bring them all in to the resources. And I'll just take one of them and drag it to the scene. And I'll just apply directly on the root. Now, one thing that I truly appreciate in Notch is that I don't have to drag and drop and try out every single LUT one by one. I literally can go to the node of the LUT and all of the available LUTs that are in the resources will be listed for me here. And I can just cycle through and choose the very best looking one that fits my scene best. Maybe this one. I think it, yeah, I think I'm going to leave it at that. And I would say we're pretty much done. So this is our reference, and this is where we ended up now. I guess we could tweak a little bit the color correction or choose another LUT, but I think you get the gist, and hopefully this comes handy for you when you're creating your designs. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next tutorial.